Joining me now is our political panel for the day. Former Liberal MP Jason Falinski and former Labor advisor Eamon Fitzpatrick, now lobbyist about town. We see him in Canberra quite often, actually. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. And I always see you at Canberra Airport, in fact. Now, Jason Falinski, I must ask, how much is the cost of living going to hurt this government politically? Anthony Albanese seems to have been able to have saddled a lot of the blame for energy prices and the like at the feet of the old government. But as rates, inflation, energy prices rise this year, does that dynamic change?
I don't think it's going to hurt this year, Andrew. My view is it'll hurt in 2024 when household savings and the employment market softens. And yes, by that stage, people will not so much be trying to work out who to blame. They'll be looking for who's got the solution to solve the cost of living crisis that they're well and truly feeling by that stage.
Eamon Fitzpatrick, I mean, we had Stephen Jones on before, the Assistant Treasurer, basically indicating that apart from these price caps, if there's going to be electricity bill relief, it's going to be couples, families on $156,000 or less, really, that family tax benefit cohort. Is that going to be enough politically? I mean, a lot of people on salaries bigger than that, many people on salaries bigger for that, voted for Labor.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Look, there's no doubt that cost of living is a massive challenge for this government, but it's also the reason why this government got elected, I actually think, because they had plenty to say about what they were going to do to try and fix that. And you know what? They haven't wasted time. So they've done a whole bunch of things in and around trying to get wages up, fixing issues with workforce, doing all the things that they said they would, and now this intervention in terms of gas prices. That is action, and you know, when you look at it, there's no doubt this is a government that has sent a signal every step of the way. We are on the side of Australian households and working families, and we'll do what we can to keep prices down. Now, the reality is everybody is under pressure. It's not just Australia, it's countries right around the world. We've been spared a little bit, I think, of the pain, but there will be more friction to come, and the trick is going to be what is in place to try and make life easier for people. And I think Jason is right. As the term moves on, the pressure will rise, and we will have to see where we are the year after next.
All right, well, I guess they could carry on with the stage 3 tax cuts. That might be one solution for them. But we're going to go to Eamon again. The PM copped a bit of a tough time on radio this morning about the voice to the Constitution. Don't know if you heard him on Ben Fordham. It seems to me that the government needs to do a better job of selling this if they're going to get it over the line, particularly with Peter Dutton in the opposition leader's role. What do you think?
Look, this is a really interesting one, right? Because it is such a fundamental issue. It goes to who we are as a nation. And there are two ways to approach it. You do all the deal up front in terms of a campaign, and you run the risk of people not being able to grasp and fully and get consensus on the basic issue. But you'll see the Prime Minister come back to it time and again. The basic question is one of fairness and doing the right thing and enshrine it in the Constitution. And that's where he has tried to keep it. Now, there are obviously details being worked out. Some of the greatest constitutional advisors in the country are working on this campaign, and people from right across the community and the Indigenous community. So what we will see in the months ahead, knowing that this is coming in the second half of the year, is a stage rollout of what this will involve. But I think there's actually still a bit of work to just answer the basic issue and to make sure everybody is coming from the same place, which is enshrining this in the Constitution. Now, if you want to start drawing a line under our past as a nation and some of the aspects that are much more difficult to deal with, then you have to accept that we need a better way of making sure there is a voice, and there is a voice, an advisory voice that goes into how the laws are made and what things look like, so we get a better result. We get a better result across all of Australian society.
Jason Falinski, what's your view on the concept? Can it work? Can it work at referendum, first of all, and then generally, could it work?
Yeah, so Andrew, look, I agree with Eamon. What we're dealing with here is a group of people who have been historically disenfranchised in the Australian community. And I think the vast majority of Australians want to do everything they possibly can to ensure that Indigenous Australians have better outcomes in the future than they've had in the past, and more than that, access to better opportunities than they've had in the past. The problem that I think a lot of Australians are facing at the moment is they don't understand how the voice does that. And today's interview on Ben Fordham kind of demonstrated that it doesn't seem like the Prime Minister does either. And I agree with Eamon. I personally am someone who is very much in favour of a treaty with our First Nations people to remove or at least recognise the original stain of our foundation, which is that we took land from Aboriginal or Indigenous Australians without compensation, without asking them, without a treaty. And that, I think, is probably where our efforts should be more properly focused at the moment than on the voice. And look, I don't think, and I've got to be blunt, I don't think over Christmas, New Year, having Bill Shorten call people racist because they had the audacity in a democracy to ask, so what does this look like and how does this work, is actually going to help. And I'm really worried that this proposal fails and that Aboriginal Australians come to the conclusion, or Indigenous Australians come to the conclusion, that other Australians don't care about them. And I really do think that a lot needs to be done by the proponents of this proposal to bring more Australians into the camp by asking some pretty simple questions.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon.